Yo, welcome to another Untimely review. I guess we're just going through all the movies that have awoken something deeply in me. This time we're talking about Scooby-Doo, a franchise that has done many things to me over the years. So, major spoilers for Scooby-Doo's first live-action movie. We open right in the middle of the case of the Luna Ghost, and the very first piece of dialogue we hear is from Daphne saying that now she really has a wedgie. So if that doesn't indicate the immense quality of this film, I don't know what does. It's also important to note that she does this while being flown around by the Luna Ghost. The Luna Ghost is the most, we'll just put it on a green screen and it'll look fine type of deal I've ever seen, and oh my god, the geeky goddess herself. But no time, the plan's in place. Velma radios to Fred and tells him the plan so that the audience knows just how clever she is. Scooby and Shaggy completely ruin the plan. Velma almost fucking dies, and I've never hated Fred in any iteration more than this one now. Shaggy and Scoob do a hippie jump, which is the greatest meta joke in this whole fucking movie, over this spinning blade that's just in a toy factory for no reason. The fakest shit I've ever seen on screen happens, but then they end up capturing the ghost, and we see that Mystery Inc. is super popular with the teen and tween market, and that the ghost was haunting this Pamela Anderson doll factory because he wanted to smash. Fred takes all the credit, and then we see how sad that makes Velma, and before I say anything else, let me just check something real quick.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer every night.
What was I doing again? Oh, yeah, right. We find out that Old Man Smithers was the Luna Ghost. We get a George Clooney reference that went over my head 18 years ago and continues to go over my head today. Velma then explains how Smithers was able to fly. She presses Fred about taking credit for the plan and he just brushes that shit off. Daphne and Velma get into it, but Shaggy brings everyone back to Earth and says that everyone plays an important part, but then explains it in the most gross, disgusting, food-related way possible. So, very on brand for him, actually. But the team implodes, and Fred, Velma, and Daphne quit, and I'm not gonna lie, I might have teared up a little bit when Scooby asked if he was supposed to quit too. 2 years pass. Shaggy and Scooby are hotboxing with only the finest of vegetarian ingredients, and it's fucking gross. This guy comes up to them with an invitation to Spooky Island, and Shaggy says that he doesn't go anywhere with spooky, haunted, or creepy in the name, and I've never felt more connected to this character more than now. Scooby makes kids ask their parents what hydrocolonic means. Shaggy turns down 10 bands, but the moment this guy says it's an all-you-can-eat, you know they're hopping on the next flight. We pick up with Fred and Velma bumping into each other in the airport, Daphne's being a diva, and Scooby is dressed like someone's grandma, and this kid eyes him like he's trying to smash right in the terminal. What a nasty little boy. On the plane, this girl asks to take this empty seat next to Scooby, and I don't think that's how it works, but whatever. The craziest part about this is that she's eating dog treats out in the open, and yeah, Shaggy does it too, and that's also weird, but that always seemed like an internal thing with the gang and not him just munching on doggy treats with whoever. Very strange. We get the weed joke. Scooby, who is dressed as a grandma and has been acting as such, starts fucking barking at this cat on the plane, which I'm also pretty sure isn't allowed, and nobody other than Fred does anything about it. When they get to Spooky Island, they meet the owner, Emil Mondavarius, and he explains that he thinks that someone is casting a spell on the college students there. Oh yeah, Spooky Island is a spring break tourist attraction, because of course it is. This lady throws this grown man. Velma looks genuinely scared here, and we meet this guy, Nugu Tauna and Zarkos. Scooby gets a call from some mysterious guy who's definitely gonna do something bad to him, but because he promised a bag of hamburgers, you know he dipped out ready to munch. This guy tells Daphne not to go up to this castle, but she thinks it's some 5D chess type of brain move, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Scooby finds the bag of hamburgers in the forest, even though, again, this guy said that there was already all-you-can-eat food there, so I don't know why these hamburgers were so alluring to Scoob. Anyway, this demon tries to eat him, but some hilarious cartoon violence happens, and Scoob runs to find Shaggy. Once everyone's safe, Daphne tries to get Shaggy and Scooby to go into the spooky castle, but at first they're like, nah, why would we even do that? It's got spooky in the name. But once Scooby gets a Scooby snack, he's ready to go, and Shaggy just follows so he isn't left alone in the darkness. When all three of them get inside, they see that Fred and Velma were already in there snooping around. Fred tells them to split up, and I think now is the perfect time to say that that is always a terrible plan in almost every situation, and that Scooby-Doo promotes bad detectiving. Batman would never. he should have taught them better. Anyway, Fred says this.
I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on too.
And I mean, but during that HR disaster in any other field, they were being watched by some guy, and he turns on all the attractions, so now everyone's running for their lives. Scoob exposes Shaggy for drinking out of a toilet, gross, and before Daphne gets impaled, Fred gets hit through glass and stops all the attractions. Velma and Fred find a weird brainwashing video, and while they watch that, for research purposes of course, Daphne finds a Millennium item, and Shaggy and Scooby have a burp and fart off contest. This is a comedy after all. That random guy from earlier sounds an alarm and everyone dips out of the castle. They all go see Mondavarius and tell him that they have 3 suspects. Tauna, that voodoo guy Daphne met, and Mondavarius himself. This guy is trying to talk to Velma. Get in line, pal. And she's talking about the good old days. Then we get introduced to Mr. Puppy Power himself, Scrappy Doo. Now, this might get my Scooby-Doo fan card taken away, but I liked Scrappy from the old show. He wanted smoke with everything that moved, and I respect that. I don't really see the problem. Once the flashback is over, the demon from earlier freaks Scooby out again and then freaks everyone else out with its gross CGI body, and then it captures Fred. Then another monster falls from the glass ceiling and captures Velma. Scooby gives one of the monsters a very bad manicure and gets Shaggy, Daphne, and Mary Jane, who I did not remember being this involved in the story, to safety. Mary Jane calls the Coast Guard. This guy gives the best evil look I've seen in a while, and when the gang wakes up the next day, everything seems fine and not monster infested. Daphne says to split up to find Fred and Velma. Still not a fan of that plan. Editor's note, it's your boy. So a friend of mine told me to be nice to this band here at Sugar Ray. Don't know who the fuck they are, but here's a nice comment. His hair looks like a porcupine's. That's cool.
Now back to the show.
But then Scooby finds Fred and he's talking like a white mom trying to sound cool to her kids for some reason. But before they can figure out what's going on, Fred breathes on them with gingivitis breath and starts chasing Shaggy and Scoob. Zarko steals the Millennium item from Daphne. Shaggy and Scoob hide out in a shed and then break out on ATVs because this movie will never cease to amaze. Then they go pick up Mary Jane, who gets the shit knocked out of her from a tree branch, and then we see she's one of them. But only Scooby sees it. And just like the good friend that he is, Scooby tries to tell Shaggy what he saw and even calls him whipped, which is nuts to think about. But Shaggy's not hearing any of it. Then they get into a roast off, but before Shaggy can even swing on him, Scoob falls down a hole. Then Mary Jane accidentally uses her monster voice, but somehow Shaggy didn't notice her voice fall like 10 octaves. Shaggy dives down the hole and finds this pool of souls where Velma is calling him from. He frees her and she gets sent back to her body. We also see that these monsters go off of vampire rules and can't be in direct sunlight or they die like Crash Bandicoot. Yeah! Shaggy saves Fred, puts this other dude back, and then saves Daphne, who he shouldn't even know is captured, but we only have so much time in this hour-and-a-half film, so let's keep it pushing. Fred gets trapped in Daphne's body and vice versa. Fred's a nasty man. And the gang meets up again, but they keep switching bodies until everything's straight. Once it is, they run into the Voodoo Man again, who explains everything that's going on with the villains. Picking up with Scooby, Mondavarius just straight up asks him to be a sacrifice, and because Scooby doesn't understand words, for once, he's cool with it. The gang is all willing to work together to save Scoob, and we see them rigging up their traps and getting their plan in motion, which involves a lot of ziplining and rock climbing equipment for all you aspiring mystery solvers. But Shaggy goofs up, and now the whole thing is a wash. Shaggy does find Scoobs though. We see Fred and Velma dance, very Caucasianly, and Mondavarius starts villain monologuing because we can't have a Scooby-Doo story without that. Shaggy apologizes for being a shitty friend to Scooby, but before they can get out of there, the ritual starts and Scooby gets spirit stabbed. Shaggy stops Mondavarius from absorbing Scooby though, and he gets his body back pretty fast, and Fred sees that Mondavarius is just a dude in the mask, but when he takes the mask off, we see it's actually Scrappy Doo in a robot suit.
Wow!
Now he's hulked out and chasing Scooby. Daphne is fighting Zarko. She does like 4 spins in midair. Fred's using a ball and chain type thing and beating ass. Scrappy is chasing Scooby, but when Daphne beats Zarkos, the pool of souls tips over and all the souls are released. Shaggy poked Scrappy in the chest and deflates him. Fred and Daphne, who have shown zero chemistry or interest in each other this whole movie, kiss, and the day is saved. We see the real Mondavarius, Velma gets the shine she deserves, we find out that Scrappy's middle name is Cornelius, which explains why he's so mad all the time, and the movie ends with Scooby and Shaggy dining on some spicy peppers. Alright, now that the story's out of the way, what did I think? Well, first of all, I thought that this movie's plot was the plot of the second movie, so I was very confused about what the second one is about, especially since I know I watched that one more because I had the DVD. Not really related, but I thought I'd just share. Looking at the actual movie, it is corny as fuck.
Catch that new vid on the box?
True that. I'm up to sniff on all popular trends.
But that's kind of the point. Corny, campy, and B-movie are what Scooby-Doo was and kinda is now. I haven't actually watched any of the new shows, so that might not actually be still true. It's still enjoyable, but in a wow, there seems to be some corners they cut with this type of way. The acting is pretty solid all around though, even if it is just all the basic stereotypes for the main 5 characters. Freddie Prinze Jr., who played Fred, hey look at that, is egotistical, but I never felt like it was malicious. I mean, if you wore an ascot every day, I think you're gonna think you're the shit in every scenario too. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Daphne, is actually really interesting to me because yeah, she's the pretty popular type, but there's a little bit more depth to it. She desperately wants to be seen for her skills and she's doing all types of shit like becoming a black belt so that people take her seriously. Gellar's performance reflected that pretty well and I liked it. Matthew Lillard, who is Shaggy, is amazing. I don't know what to say. He just is Shaggy. The carefree, fun-loving, and hungry dude hasn't been portrayed better, and that's no disrespect to anyone else, it's just not comparable. How can you even really criticize the person when they play themselves? Dude's great and his performance is too. Neil Fanning, who played as Scooby-Doo, was also really good too. He's probably the funniest part of the movie as a whole, and like he should be, it's named after him. But Fanning's performance was great. He had the voice and inflection down. I do wish that he did talk a little bit more to enjoy it, but it's fine. Mondavarius is an eccentric weirdo, and that seems to be Rowan Atkinson's bag, and I can see why. I've never actually seen Mr. Bean outside of clips, but that strange energy that you can feel from that is here too, but this time, he talks. And man, is it strange. But he's supposed to be weird, so it works out pretty well. And finally, let's talk about Linda Cardellini. Okay. So she is super awkward, and I think that that's one of the more interesting parts of her character because she's super capable, but she's not always confident in herself, and that's why she lets Fred take the spotlight in the beginning and lets him do it in the end too before he lets her talk. Before I start crying because I chase things that are constantly out of my reach, I'll end this by saying I liked her performance. For the overall story, it's fine. I'm literally only saying that because Scooby-Doo was always just some dude scaring people for like insurance fraud or something, so this story worked for me. I don't like how disrespectful they were to Scrappy, but I know I'm in the minority for that one. I also feel like there's just random stuff about this movie that is never explained. Like, why is Zarkos a Mexican wrestler? And I don't mean he dresses up as one. Tauna says that you may have seen him on Telemundo, so he's like a legit luchador who's now just a crony of this guy. But why? And like, why was that voodoo guy on the island if this island was a legit amusement park? Is he a native and they just let him stay there? And that's nice if they did, but if he's a native, where are all the other ones? Nothing is explained, and for a movie that's weird like this, I kinda dig it. But overall, the movie's alright. You can watch it with anyone, and I think that even though the special effects, aside from Scooby, are fucking ugly, the rest of the movie does hold up pretty well. Even with the Pamela Anderson cameo for no reason. Oh yeah, also James Gunn wrote this, which is weird to me. But what did you think? Is Scrappy underrated, or were you happy that they injected him with spirit steroids? What should I review next? Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.